Good morning, everyone. This morning is Sunday, July 15th, 2018, and we welcome you to our Sunday morning Roundtable discussion. We are recording from the Plainfield Christian Science Church, Plainfield, New Jersey, the United States of America. And Florence will start us with the morning prayer.
Mrs. Eddy's prayer given at the Massachusetts Metaphysical College. O my God, I offer as a consecrated gift upon thine altar a heart dedicated to thy service, lips speaking only words of charity, love, and truth, thoughts striving to be only the true thoughts of the mind of God. Help me to endure unto the end, strong in the faith, powerful in the truth, all the influence that I can bring to bear, all the force of tongue or pen that is mine, I offer in thy service. May heaven help, consecrate, and accept.
Thank you. And Mary Baker Eddy, Blaney, stay in this classroom are enough to convert the world if we are of one mind, for then the whole world will feel the influence of this mind, as when the earth was without form, and mind spake, and form appeared. Our subject today is life, the golden text Amos. Seek good and not evil, that ye may live. And so the Lord, the God of hosts, shall be with you. Okay, Linda, I think we should start with the watching point, please.
Okay. It's watch number 443. Watch lest you forget that in science there is nothing in your path that cannot be turned into a constructive step in your spiritual growth. On that basis, all things work together for good to them that love God. Hence, we should never permit ourselves to regret anything in the past. End quote.
Thank you. Why is that such a very important point?
Because it can be a
very common tendency of the human mind to get down on yourself and get into a very negative state of mind. And that is destructive. It renders you useless for God.
And you're believing in evil.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, what's wrong with having a negative expectation?
Everything what you're going to get.
Yeah, you're believing in a power.
Negative results. You'll have it.
Yes. But, it's something I'm sure I know I have been guilty of. So you make sure your past, only the good was true. And anything else you've learned lessons from, stepping stones that will enable you to rise higher. It's not in human and material development. It is in spiritual progression. That's your past. So don't feel guilty and don't be guilty of doing that. Today is fresh and new, which brings me to, I thought, Florence, your forum was so beautiful, and it kind of summed up a lot about life. Can you read that?
Okay, let me get it right now. Yes. It's about life. And I said that I'm so grateful to learn through Christian Science that God is life. This understanding has changed a great deal in my view about many things. Working with the synonym life makes me think of constant right action, function of my whole being, strength, vitality, health. It helps me not to go over the past or worry about the future. Aging and its associated physical claims become increasingly unreal as thought is taken off past regrets and disappointments and age by birthdays. It's wonderful to be reminded to live in the eternal now and to know consistently that I am ageless, diseaseless, and deathless. O life that maketh all things new. This is from hymn 218. This correct view of life adds more clarity to our true freedom as the spiritual ideas of a loving Father, Mother, God.
Thank you. A beautiful stuff we should feel about life. You know, each synonym of God we need to think about our expression of it, and all of that, my whole being, strength, vitality, health. Again, not to go over the past or worry about the future. No, you're ageless, diseaseless, and deathless. And this is the life that God gives us. And why accept any other life? Any other sense, erroneous sense of life? Anyone else on this?
I like that distinction of the mortal past, because the mortal past is all the wrong, really, that happened. And I think distinguishing that makes you be grateful for the good that happened as the good that came from God. And so that we must elevate and cherish and be grateful for, and that can help us even know more about God's goodness for us. But the other stuff, the mortal stuff, oh, I did this, I did it, that can be an everlasting punishment. I mean, it can be around your neck forever if you don't face it and just begin to let it go. Or regrets of, oh, I lost such and such a person, and you can't get over it. You keep going back to it. It just stunts your growth. Absolutely.
Yes. And I don't know if anyone can quote the calendar. It was also Florence, but it was, if you're knowing the truth, you can't lose anything. Maybe, does anyone have it? Anyway, it was a very...
Hold on to truth, and you will not lose anything worth having.
Very good.
And, you know, in the lesson, in the Bible, it's a lot about seeking and what to do. The Proverbs is always, you know, what to do or what not to do. Highway of the upright is to depart from evil. He that keepeth his way preserveth his soul. So, parting from evil, keeping your way, not falling into the traps of pride or a haughty spirit, because you'll stumble.
When you think about it, really, what is it that would keep you from letting go of the past and learning from mistakes and moving forward?
It's pride that does that.
Yeah, it's all pride, isn't it? Pride that, oh, I made such a bad mistake, therefore I'm such a bad person. You're attaching it to yourself. And if it was not good, it was never true about you as God's image and likeness. It might have been true about that wicked mortal, which was never you in the first place. I literally just wrote something on the forum about the golden text. So unfortunately, Mary doesn't have it, but seeking good and not evil, that you may live. And so the Lord of God of hosts shall be with you. This is the covenant, isn't it? I mean, this is the theme that's throughout the entire Bible. The key question is, what is this good that we should be seeking? This is why behavior in the name of tolerance.
You'll get your feelings hurt.
And the human sense of goodness will quickly turn to hatred, or when that happens. But to seek only what God decrees to be right, seek to please God only. That is what Amos is talking about here. To seek the good that is God. Do that, you put yourself under the protection of divine law. Mrs. Evans used to love to say often, when you stand for principle stands for you. When you seek that which is godlike, right, God's eye, and God takes care of you. Unfortunately, that's the only power in the universe, so you don't have to worry about anything else. And that is what heals. That is what benefits others.
And it's so important that the lesson brings it out, that this is essential. It is essential to understand instead of believe what relates most nearly to the happiness of being. And this is life, and this is what Gary was talking about, seeking God, the divine sense of life. Not the human, but the divine. And essential, it's one of the definitions, necessary to the existence of a thing, that which is most important. And then to seek truth through belief in human doctrine is not to understand the infinite. We must not seek the immutable and immortal through the finite, mutable, and mortal, and so depend upon belief instead of demonstration. For this is fatal to a knowledge of science. Now, so living this, seeing it, and believe, that means if you just sit in your armchair and read about this all the time, instead of living it and demonstrating it, it's fatal, which means what?
Deadly.
Deadly.
It will destroy your science. It's fatal to the knowledge of science. So those, and I once did it, I know, would rather just sit and read about it rather than living it, demonstrating. That's what demonstrating means. You will kill your sense of science. And this is what's happened in many instances to the movement, where people just read about it and think it's a nice theory. You must live it, and Mrs. Eddy says it, and then again in the lesson. Consecration to good does not lessen man's dependence on God, but heightens it. Neither does consecration diminish man's obligations to God, but shows the paramount necessity of needing them. So, it's got to be most important, essential, the most important thing to you. Many people don't want it, and they don't want to work that hard for it. They'd rather just float along. So I thank God for those of you who do put it first, because this is what's going to make the difference, not only to your own life, but to the welfare of all mankind.
And it requires complete trust in your spiritual sense. That is why it's so essential to cultivate your spiritual sense. When your spiritual sense warns you about something, don't ignore it. It's God speaking to you. And it means not tolerating that which is inharmonious in your experience. Don't settle for compromise. It just doesn't work. And the other thing that it requires is a lot of self-immolation, or burning out of pride. I am constantly amazed at how much pride I needs to be burned out, and it's not like a one-time process. Be prepared for your pride to be hurt. And when it is hurt, it's a good thing.
Now, all of this is the life that makes all things new. So if you have things that you need to be made new, this is the way. You know, in Psalms, the lesson says, the young lions do lack and suffer hunger, but they that seek the Lord shall not want any good thing. So what good thing are you lacking? What is it? Ask yourself. Is it peace in your home? Health issues? Financial problems? They that seek the Lord shall not want any good thing. So if you're lacking something good, ask yourself, how can I seek the Lord? How can I be more consecrated? Get rid of these beliefs and start demonstrating the truth, living it, not just thinking about it or talking about it or reading about it. And you won't want for any good thing because we have a loving, abundant who will meet the need always. Anyone want to comment?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Royce. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I can't hear you right now, so I'll just share it since you can hear me. Page 495 of Science and Health, lines 14 through 24, I've used over and over and over again. When the illusion of sickness or sin tempts you, cling steadfastly to God and His idea. Allow nothing but His likeness to abide in your thought. Doesn't mean a suggestion might not come, but don't let it stay there. Let neither fear nor doubt overshadow your clear sense and calm trust that the recognition of life, harmonious, as capital life eternally is, can destroy any painful sense of or belief in that which life is not. Let Christian Science, instead of corporeal sense, support your understanding of being, and this understanding will, three things, supplant error with truth, replace mortality with immortality, and silence discord with harmony. That has worked for me time after time after time. So I just wanted to share it. Thank you.
Thank you. That's one of the essential beliefs to be,
It's very powerful.
Yes, very powerful. Thank you, Roy.
And also, this is Michael, I would just add that where she writes that spirit is the only attraction, and I've been using that lately to try to tell myself that the only want I could have is God, and everything else is of lesser importance. And to understand that that's Mrs. Eddy speaking about, man's real want or attraction, and all that they could ever want is in God and only God.
Thank you.
Yeah, and what Royce read, and it was good that you said that, it doesn't mean that evil isn't going to come to you. It will come to you, but it will only come to you when you are ready to handle it. In other words, you're not responsible for the thoughts that come to you. When you're working in the world, when you're doing things with other people, there will be beliefs that they harbor that will come to you. But you are responsible for what you do about it.
And I think of Mrs. Eddy's, quoting Mrs. Eddy, rise in the strength of spirit to resist all that is unlike good. God has made man capable of this, and nothing can vitiate the ability of power divinely given to man.
And bestowed upon me. Thank you.
I think I like the sense of, we have to know what we have. We've been given a lot, and because I used to feel so helpless and Yeah, and I wasn't using what even the simplest truth that I know. Just felt weak and overcome. But I guess to always remember that we have something very strong that completely opposes these lies. I think it's a wonderful thought to have that I'm not helpless. I am at one with God. My God is near and near now to do something.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you don't have to understand everything about Christianity for it to work. If you have faith as a grain of mustard,
right.
You know one thing that's true about you and God. And when you're faced with a problem, you cling to what you know to be true. As Florence said, we have something. And when you prove to be true, even one statement of truth, it opens up the doors of heaven.
In the lesson, Gary wrote to us, the face of the Lord is against them that do evil, to cut off the remembrance of them from the earth. What did you?
Yeah, I thought this was so good that in Unity of Good, that he explained that God does not know evil. That's why the remembrance of it will be cut off. He writes, God is not the so-called ego of evil, for evil as a supposition is the father of itself, of the material world, the flesh, and the devil. From this falsehood arise the self-destroying elements of this world, its unkind forces, its tempests, lightnings, earthquakes, poisons, rabid beasts, fatal reptiles, and mortals.
That's such a beautiful statement.
But God does not know it. God does not know evil. That is a powerful statement. That is a powerful truth. Because if God doesn't know it, that means it doesn't exist as a reality. It only seems to exist as an illusion. That is how it can be healed. And that is why we have dominion over every evil belief.
So don't ever be impressed by it, no matter how bad it seems to look, no matter how long it's gone on. It's just simply, you're just watching a bad dream, and you might as well change the channel. Truth, God never said it. And if you do believe it and you get drawn into it, you become part of the problem rather than part of the solution. Sometimes you just have to apply and apply that truth and apply that truth, even though it doesn't seem to be working. It is working. Is Elizabeth here? Elizabeth had a beautiful proof of that. I don't know if she wants to speak to it.
Okay.
Have to go
my son is at a military academy, and he's in basic training right now. And it's very difficult, of course. And the first few, we've gotten a few letters back, and the first few were kind of negative. And then the one I got the other day, it was just kind of blew me away. He just expressed so much love for me and what I had done for him, and how he was younger, how I'd prayed for him and prayed with him, and it just went on, and how I was such a wonderful mother, and how I expressed God, and I just didn't think he was really listening to all that, because very recently, he was saying there is no God. So that was just such a beautiful thing for me as a mother to hear from him.
And I don't know how many times Elizabeth would call. I mean, she has 3 boys, though. anyway, but just, feeling she was getting nowhere with them, and they were so rebellious, none of them believed in God, and all of this. And here, I kept telling her that that's not the truth, and they are listening. They do feel it. They feel it in your home. They're getting it. You have to keep knowing that, even though everything tells you it's not true. If you keep expressing that Christ, it is true, and it will be made manifest. And this was just, I was crying reading it. It knocked my socks off to think of this boy who had been once so anti-God and rebellious is just pouring out such gratitude to his earthly mother for expressing the Christ to him. So don't ever think it's in vain. And I loved it. I loved it so much in the watch last night, and Bruce found it. It was a beautiful from Mary Baker Eddy collected Tanya. There is within us a divine selfhood that recognizes the genuine, good, and true, a reflection of the divine perfection and intelligence that enables us to lay hold of the truth to us. Now, you all remember this. It's true about everybody, everywhere. There's something within them. Of course, God created that receptivity within all of us. And when you seem to be speaking to someone who's negative and rebellious and fighting you, remember this. There, and that's mentally, that is what you address. You know that's the truth about them, and sooner or later it will manifest itself. It has to, because this is the truth, and the other's a false fiction.
And when they get into a position where they have no choice but to turn to God,
right,
they will remember.
They will remember. And you never give up. Elizabeth, and she's still, no parent ever gives up. You always keep working with this and knowing this truth about them. They're receptive to it. They cannot resist it. And it's not just true about children. It's true about everybody everywhere. The truth. So thank you for finding that, Bruce. That was just beautiful, and it's one to remember and to work with. And never doubt it. Because sometimes with Elizabeth, even I occasionally would scratch my head. But I did feel there's this goodness with all her boys. There's goodness with everybody. So keep working on it. And this was just a 180 the way it turned around.
Can I add to that? I'm Jeffrey.
Hi, Jeffrey. Go ahead. You want to add to it? Go ahead.
Good job with the boys there, Elizabeth. I have a daughter, 18, and I just got back from a 5-day trip trying to rescue her from a situation that she's in Oregon. And you could call it a mission of love. And I was working with my practitioner the whole time. I brought my science and health, and I've been dealing with everything that we're discussing here this morning. Everything, including the golden text on down the line. I have a personal sense of failure that I did not succeed in my mission, but I know that's on one side because I wasn't able to bring her home. Even though I had a plane ticket for her. She's in trouble with the law. She's living on the streets of Portland, having gone out there with a boyfriend she's now broken up with, but it's easy to get marijuana on the streets there. It's legal. And she's basically homeless now since she broke up with her boyfriend. And I had to go to court with her for an arraignment because she got involved with a security guard who filed some harassment charges against her because she was defending another homeless teenage friend. It's kind of like a teenage wasteland. Those kids out in Portland who are not being addressed and need to be addressed. Anyway, way, that's all on one side.
Well, and that's why, just as in Elizabeth's case, you know, she had many stories to tell too, not quite that one, but others. You do not give up, you keep working, and this is our work. We'll have another watch on our children, but, you know, I mean, it's here in Portland where Harry and I mean, he's from the Northwest, we spend a lot of time out there. Now they have along the river just all these homeless tents and things like that. We have to address this and know everyone is in their right place, in their right mind. And as Michael was talking about, no false attraction, but you don't give up on it. You keep at it, even though nothing seems to be going right. It doesn't mean that the work is not effective. It is effective. Mrs. Eddy says, right thought must manifest itself. So anytime you backtrack and begin to think it's real and get discouraged and depressed or worried, well, then you have to retrace your steps and get back to it. So, and read that from Unity of Good again, Gary.
God is not the so-called ego of evil. For evil, as a supposition, is the father of itself, of the material world, the flesh and the devil. From this falsehood arise the self-destroying elements of this world, its unkind forces, its tempests, lightnings, earthquakes, poisons, rabid beasts, fatal reptiles, and mortals. This is why we have to allow this whole material world picture to destroy itself, so that the reality of all things will come to light. It seems to be painful at times, but we have to let it be destroyed. And the truth, the reality of all of us, including our loved ones, will come through and be seen. And that is what we're doing here.
Because good cannot be destroyed. Good is immortal and eternal. And so you never have to worry. Nothing good will ever be destroyed. Only the error destroys itself, and it has to. That's all it can do. So, and this is why we watch. It's why we're so dedicated in all this work. This is a false about our youth or any of all this, any homelessness. I mean, there's any number of issues, the drugs we take up. No false attraction.
Yeah, this is Len. I just want to add, I know quite a few people who've been trained according to the Bible, and then they left that way. They went into the world and got in all sorts of trouble, yet later on they came back. So it reminds me of that scripture, train up a boy according to the way, and when he is older he will not depart from it. So there is hope, and we just keep on doing our best to help others to appreciate this truth. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn. There is always
the prodigal son is always helpful too.
Yes,
right.
That last week, no matter how bad it gets. Thank you, Betty.
Yes, there are a lot of prodigal sons and daughters around.
There are. They come home.
Right, and they are sons and daughters of God, not of us, of God. That is how they find themselves. One of Peter's songs that has been sung. He sings about this. He tried everything, that the world offered. When he found God, he found himself. That is all. That is the all in all. That is what there is to life, and there's really nothing more to life than that.
Yes. And again, the life that maketh all things new. So all that past and all that, don't hang on to it, don't regret it, don't think about it, don't give it power. Know that the past belongs to God, and only the good is real and true. Whatever mortals seem to have learned from error, I'm not quoting it exactly now, but the truth will destroy whatever mortals seem to have learn from error, and man's existence as a child of God comes to light. That's all that can happen. All that can happen. So, Jeremy and also Linda, I'd like you to speak a little bit to your forum.
Okay.
Saw with Christ Jesus and his discussions with Pharisees.
Yeah, since arriving here, it's become very clear how he never got trapped by anything that they were trying to trap him with. So this week, when going through it and seeing that he actually did directly answer it, I was wondering why that difference was there. So I found the two things in Proverbs that made me think of the different ways that he answered. One is, answer not a fool according to his folly, lest thou also be like unto him. Then the other was, answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own conceit. And just seeing how Jesus wouldn't answer a reaction with a reaction, but he would answer if there was a receptive heart listening. And that's what was happening here. He was giving that explanation so that these people would be able to see that the Pharisees did have faulty logic and that he was offering something so much better.
Yes. It's such a wonderful example, to study and think of how he spoke to people that were trying to trip him up and get him to say the wrong thing, or he just kept turning it around. Only divine wisdom could have done that in a spiritual sense. Why, again, the watch last night, remember that. He was always addressing the truth in them. The truth in them.
And he knew his audience.
Yes, he did.
He knew what his audience needed. The audience needed one answer, and another audience needed a different answer.
Yes.
Based on where they were.
I've mentioned this a while ago. Some of us watched the movie called The Gospel of John. Dear person sent it to us a while ago. And I don't always like those kind of movies, but they portrayed Jesus in such a beautiful way. And when he would talk to the Pharisees, even, addressing the way he did here, he had a look of kindness in his eyes. It was never hate. It was a look of kindness and almost sometimes a glint of maybe even say humor, like, come on, guys, let's get it here. It was just such a sweet expression that the actor captured that I do believe that Christ was like that. It was a lovely expression of his love.
I saw the same thing in a movie that they did, and it was when Jesus healed the man with 7 devils or whatever. I can't describe that look. It was you were just seeing that perfection, but it was a beautiful, loving, you felt the love just looking at, I don't know how they did that, but it was just a powerful look of, I see nothing but the truth in you, something like that. I mean, it's just beautiful.
It is.
And that's what healed the man. I mean, I guess that's what this in Jesus beheld in science the perfect man. No matter what, that's all he saw. And it just transformed the man.
Yes, thank you. Okay, then, Linda, what you wrote about.
All right, I wrote about John 8, where Jesus is addressing the Pharisees' thought, and they are telling him that his record wasn't true, that he was bearing of himself. And he said to them, you cannot tell whence I come or whither I go. Ye judge after the flesh. And that really hit me. This lesson this week has really helped open my eyes to this idea that when you're judging after the flesh, you can't tell where the messengers, we're not appreciating the messengers because we're judging incorrectly. And that's why Mrs. Eddy was misunderstood. And Jesus, they never acknowledged he was the Savior comes. And I really loved, Gary added to it that really helped me, that he referred that when Jesus was referring to the Christ, when he says I in there, it's not human or person. And then at the end, Gary wrote this sentence that says, that's why it is essential to recognize and appreciate those who set the right example for us and have the love and courage to teach us what they know of God. And a light bulb really went on for me with that, a new appreciation for Mrs. Eddy. And one of the examples for me was when I was growing up, they used to use Mrs. Eddy's rigid orderliness as a sort of rule that this is how we need to, this is the way you live if you're a Christian Scientist. You have everything in the right place. But it was a very human sense of rigidity and very harsh, and it was a horrible standard of perfectionism. And it was because they were judging after the human, and they weren't appreciating the lesson that she was trying to teach them. And it's about demonstrating the science, and it just really made me appreciate Carpenter's writings more and what we're learning here, so that we can translate these correctly, because these people are trying to teach us what they know about God. And I'm so grateful for our practitioners, and you have to take that human out of there. So I'm very grateful for Gary's post online.
Well, thank you. And that is why, the Carpenters are invaluable. Explain, Mrs. Eddy. We have to have that example. They say the three things: the Bible, Science and Health, Mrs. Eddy's works, and then her example. Carpenter says that in the beginning of Footsteps. And so many people, if we don't know what that example is, and if you don't know what the example is, then you don't know how to live it. This is, again, essential. Living it is essential. Because otherwise it's theory and words. This life makes all things new. So whatever is in your past that's unhappy or unpleasant, let this new sense of life do. I thought when I started out the first day reading this lesson, in Science and Health, this is all about you, that you are beautiful, grand, wise, holy, lovely, fresh. Do you accept those things about you? Do you think about those things? Are you looking in the mirror and thinking you're getting old and ugly or whatever?
Well, and, is your glass half full or half empty? There's something behind that. It's relevant to us.
Give yourself that loving treatment every morning. Let shape your views of existence into loveliness, freshness, and continuity, rather than into age and blight. One altogether lovely, patient, tender, and true. But again, to understand God as the work of eternity and demands absolute consecration, there's that word again, of thought, energy, and desire. It can't be, to really reach the fruits of it, you can't just dabble in it or think, I'll do this when it's convenient for me. You can do that, but then don't complain when you don't get the result. It takes it. This one lesson, it's several times she said.
Don't complain that Christian Science doesn't work for you.
So, and the question is asked, what then is the material personality which suffers, sins, and dies? So what is it?
Adam dream?
The Adam dream. It is not man the image and likeness of God, but man's counterfeit, the inverted likeness and unlikeness called sin, sickness, and death. What Gary read from Unity is Good.
And I finished that forum with the thought subject to good and evil. When we recognize that evil has no legitimate existence for us or for anyone else, we will cease attaching to the person. We will gain our dominion over it, and we will have no further remembrance of it, because God does not know it.
And it will be. You will. All of this, however real it seems now, will only be like a dream.
I was thinking, why God doesn't know evil? God knows everything. Why doesn't he know evil? Because it's useless. It's nothing. 2 and 2 are 5. It's useless. So why bother? And every evil is like 2 and 2 are 5. It's totally useless.
Right. It's not only useless and unreal.
That's right.
It's not like a 0 on a blackboard. It's when you erase the 0 and there's nothing there.
Right. Right. Wonderful. All of this. So great. Thank you.
Well, and I too, sometimes I think of it, it's like a dark cloud approaching the sunlight being God. As a dark cloud approaches, and it could be your dark thought, a miserable mortal approaching the light. As you approach the light, the darkness flees. Does the light know about the darkness? No, it just has been shining. It just shines, and the closer you get to that light, the more light overcomes you, and pretty soon all the darkness is gone. Where did it go? Who knows? Where did it come from? Only the absence of the light. So, and 2 in the lesson, we should forget our bodies in remembering good and human grace. So, when you're having trouble with your body, why don't you try forgetting it? Remember the good, and remember the work you have to do for God. It'll do a great deal to help you feel better. In fact, it works. It works every time. And then, we talk about this a lot too, and it's in the lesson, either here or hereafter, suffering or science must destroy all illusions regarding life and mind and regenerate material sense and self. So, it's like a safety net. Either here or hereafter, suffering or science, sooner or later, we're going to get it. Get it. And your loved ones will get it. It's going to happen. So, don't worry, be happy.
Hope.
Yeah, don't lose hope.
Don't go back to, don't go back to your vomit. Don't give up.
Okay, we're going to close now from Unity is Good. The article, Is There No Death? By Mrs. Eddy.
Man has no underived power. That selfhood is false, which opposes itself to God, claims another father, and denies spiritual sonship. But as many as receive the knowledge of God in science must reflect, in some degree, the power of him who gave and giveth man dominion over all the earth. As soldiers of the cross, we must be brave, and let science declare the immortal status of man and deny the evidence of the material senses, which testify that man died. Death can never alarm or even appear to him who fully understands life. The death penalty comes through our ignorance of life, of that which is without beginning and without end, and is the punishment of this ignorance. In order to reach the true knowledge and consciousness of life, we must learn it of good. Evil, we can never learn it, because sin shuts out the real sense of life and brings in an unreal sense of suffering and death. The sweet and sacred sense And when this life shall appear, we shall be like him, and we shall go to the Father, not through death, but through life, not through error, but through truth. Life, God, being everywhere, it must follow that death can be nowhere, because there is no place left for it. Man in science is as perfect and immortal now as when the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy.
Thank you all for joining us today in church now, our service.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.